friends at Tivoli Brewing Company and the Department of Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU Denver, this is Unfiltered. And here are your hosts, Jay Schrader and Dr. Samuel J.
You four, welcome to the show. First, let's check what's everybody drinking. What are we drinking?
I went to the new Lady Justice on East Colfax. I saw you just did a podcast with them.
Oh, nice. Good choice. John Carruthers, what are you drinking?
I have got our new look Fifth City cans because I am a company man.
That's pretty good, though. I dig it a lot. Oh, John, I put on my shirt for you. I don't know. You remember these? Yeah. Back in the Joe Madden days. Yes. So I'm missing baseball tremendously. We'll see if it ever comes back. Nate, what are you doing, buddy? What are you drinking down there?
I got our Colorado IPA right off the tap, so it's tasting pretty nice. All
right, that a boy. And Jay Bird, what do you have? Yep. All right, we'll let Jay just show his can in a moment. All right, everybody. So we have quite a few people that are already tuned in, so we want to kind of jump right into this. Basically, as we kind of talked about before we went live, wanted to get you three on board to talk a little bit about how you're able to keep your breweries relevant and how you're kind of able to keep your product and your brand top of mind at the moment. Obviously, things are very weird across the country. And John, you're in Chicago. Everybody else is here in Denver. But I don't think what your experience is really much different than what we're experiencing in terms of not having a tap room, not being able to sell beer over the counter, over the bar. And so wanted to kind of get everybody on board to chat about that. And so let's first and foremost do some introductions. So John, I'm gonna let you kind of introduce yourself and who you are and where you work.
Sure. My name is John Carruthers. I am here in Chicago. I work for Revolution Brewing, which is the largest independently owned brewery in the state. And we have two locations. We have our brewery and tap room in Avondale, and then a mile and a half away in Logan Square, we've got a brew pub, which is where we started 10 years ago. Both, at much reduced activity rate now because of this.
Okay. And Nate, since Emily's had to back out for a second, what is your background, good sir?
Well, currently I run Roundtable Brewhouse here in Park Hill in Denver. Before this, kind of some hotel, other bar and nightclub experience from Ohio to Las Vegas. And then just fortunately got, met some good friends here and kicked the can down the road farther enough that we decided to jump into this thing. So little neighborhood brewery right here, East Denver. Just had our second anniversary Saturday. So under a quarantine celebration for that one.
Perfect. And then you three, I guess, very different kind of business models. Obviously, John being, communications director for the biggest brewery out of the group here. But also, I think the difference is between Seedstock, where Emily is. Emily, I'll let you introduce yourself in just 1 second. I was talking about the differences. Seedstock is in a part of town that has a lot more car traffic per se than foot traffic, whereas Nate, Long Table is very much in a neighborhood, a very specific neighborhood. I know you have a lot of people who are biking up and picking up cans and crowlers and that kind of stuff. So, obviously different approaches to all of this. But Emily, before we move on, can you introduce yourself and then we'll jump to the next question?
Yeah, sorry, Miss Jones. I didn't have children. I'm Tracy. I moved to Denver 3 years ago from Atlanta. Right now, I'm working with Seedstock Brewing is my main brewery account, but I also do the PR for Molly Spirits, which has 2 locations here in Denver. It's a huge liquor store, as well as Hops and Pie, which is a craft beer bar here in town. And over the years, I've done PR for the Guild, Great Divide, Call to Arms, Cloud Fest, and just a few more of the experiential festivals in town.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next question, just want to shout out to everybody. Tristan Schmid, the Colorado Brewers Guild has had to make a lot of cuts we've talked about on the show before, losing New Belgium and losing Avery was huge in terms of the money that the guild is able to have and to use. And Tristan was doing PR and marketing for the guild, and just because of cuts, he's had to move on. So sorry to hear that, sad to hear that, but I know that Shawnee Adelson's going to do a great job. It's just a lot more on her shoulders. So folks out there, if you're thinking about that, try to support our Colorado craft breweries as much as you can. And I'm sure, if you're drinking Revolution beer, support those Chicago and Illinois beers too. So let's, before we jump into kind of what you are doing, you three, how are the breweries functioning right now? Are you to go? Are you delivery? Are you distributing much? We'll kind of start with Nate. What are you doing at Roundtable to kind of keep business going and keep money rolling in?
So we're just rolling our cans, 32-ounce growler cans out the door. Have not yet. We've kicked around the idea of doing delivery. It has not really kind of fit at the moment. Obviously unknown how long this is going to last. Not saying it's a no forever. We just haven't done it. So, our target market is probably 10 blocks in any direction from the tap room. So like you said, we have the luxury of people walking up, stopping by while they're walking their dogs or riding their bike over to get out of the house during all this, or just trying to stop by for a sense of normalcy. So we've been doing this since, I think, Tuesday, March 17th was the first day of the order here in the city. And I would say, I don't know, maybe we're down around probably 50% given, last year's month this time. So definitely a big impact. But we're I would still say humbled at the fact that we're still where we are. We're still brewing beer. We've probably brewed once a week throughout this on a 7-barrel system. So, still plugging away. There's still people drinking beer. I've got to drink beer, so it's good. That's going to take place somewhere. So I think in this neighborhood, we're all fortunate to be kind of moving to and through this for sure.
Do you think, in talking to your two partners, that your model has been able to weather these first 8 weeks a little bit better than maybe some other models? Obviously you couldn't have expected it, but knowing what you're seeing in terms of sales numbers, do you think that it's a little bit kind of fortunate the way that you're set up?
I would agree with that statement for sure. Given our location, that we're not on a main drag, we're not down in a tourist or business dense area like Rhino. Obviously you're going to have, 20 competitors, within a couple blocks down there, but just the fact that we had 2 years of kind of becoming a neighborhood place, gave us a little bit of a close, loyal following. People don't have to trek all the way across the city to come to our tap room and get our beer. That being said, if you're sending your beer, all over the country and in some states, liquor stores aren't open, then you're going to be up against that wall as well.
Okay, so I know that you said you're putting crowlers out there. Is that basically it? You're just getting people picking those up in what, just 2 at a time, 1 at a time? How are you getting rid of them?
Most orders from 1 to maybe 8. We set up an online shop over the course of that one day. We're closed every week on Monday. So the orders, I think, came out Monday morning. We opened for business on Tuesday, and that 24-hour period, we troubleshot an online store to give people that little freedom of, lack of having to touch things when you come in. And most people, I'd say, would buy between 2 and 4, but you got people that they only want to come out once a week or whatever, and, stock up, or some people just stop out for a can every other day with their dog, as their kind of little reprieve from the chaos.
Awesome. Perfect. Emily, feel free to, I would like to hear from you. We would like to hear from you in terms of Seedstock, of course, but I know Molly's, I just bought some beer through Drizzly from Molly's because our partners at Handoff haven't quite forged that relationship yet. And I know that Hops and Pies, what y'all are doing there in terms of social, you're up and running, you're making donuts, you're getting pizza out. So what do things look like across those 3 businesses for you? Oh no! Look at that.
This is
Isn't
one of
that
those
wonderful?
moments where we start judging people for how good their internet is.
I know it's usually mine that's a disaster. Well, I'll tell you what, Emily. We'll come back
It's
to you.
usually yours.
Yeah, it usually is. John Carruthers, Revolution, obviously, big operation. Had the opportunity to be there and for you to have to give me a tour. Me and cousin Vic really was awesome to see. So what's going on there? Obviously, you're still distributing, but if you could talk a little bit in terms of what you all did early on to plan for this as this was rolling out, and then also kind of what you've seen over the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Sure. One of the things that I think is just kind of important to note for everybody watching this is that, no matter whose situation we're talking about, like no brewer is ready for the complete, like 100% decline of on-premise sales. I mean, that's just really tough for a lot of people right now. That said, Revolution does have decent distribution in the state, especially in Chicagoland, where we sell about 80% of our beer. We sort of took a wait and see approach on the retail operations to see how we could, bring people back to work and keep things running safely. The first thing we did was we introduced curbside pickup at the tap room. And the whole thing with that was, we took our merch store and kind of rigged it up into sell beer, which was something that we really didn't expect to be doing, so quickly. But our retail team found a way to keep pickups and drop off completely contact free. So we started selling, all of our packaged to go beers from there. Whatever draft we could kind of crawler off and sell, we've been bringing on. And then a couple weeks after, we ended up bringing some people back to work at the brew pub. So we have food pickup as well as beer and whiskey pickup and delivery from there. And that's running pretty much 7 days a week, both places. So we've been, pulling out, different combinations, a lot of old library beers that people really miss. Just kind of seeing what resonates with people right now, where we can keep the retail traffic, up while obviously, taking the big hit on the kegs like every other producer is right now.
Have you seen how many staff have you had to furlough or lay off in terms of your brew staff, but also front of house staff?
I don't have those numbers right now, but obviously the brew pub is doing 10% of the business that it did before the shutdown. So we've kept people working where we could, and then for everyone else, we're hoping that we can welcome them back sooner rather than later. But I think a lot of people are just going to get smaller, as a result of this.
How are those, obviously, as you mentioned, kegs, they're not an option at the moment. Are your can sales doing okay over the course of this? Are they up? Are they down? I mean, we've seen numbers across the country. We're consuming more beer, more alcohol. Is that the case with Revolution?
There's always a slight delay in those IRA numbers, but you're right. Just looking at, the trends and forecasts from around the country, there was a sort of initial like spike in sales as people were sort of loading up and kind of hunkering down. I believe we had a sort of a record week of sales for our IPA variety pack, the first sort of turn of that, because that was the thing that came off the line right as everyone was having to shelter in place. But yeah, we've seen really great can sales, just kind of depending on what we have going. When we're running the barrel-aged beer specials, we get a lot of repeat customers whose names we recognize, picking up Straight Jacket barley wine and Death Star and stuff like that. One cool thing we recently did was we had signed on to be the partner of the Chicago Red Stars fan group this year. It's the women's NWSL soccer team here. And obviously we are not sponsoring any tailgates right now because there are no tailgates. But what we did was we threw a fake opening day tailgate with the team and the supporters group, and we put together a package for that of 3 different kinds of beers and some team swag and some coasters and stuff. And, we sold like more than 100 just individual packs for a fake tailgate for a season that was not happening, just so we could have sort of an online Zoom thing. It was cool. It's always interesting seeing what people kind of rally around in these times. And, women's soccer, tailgating, even if it's from a distance, Chicago, people love to drink in a parking lot, even a virtual one.
Because obviously the rest of us are not in Chicago. What's the kind of, I don't want to say the sense, but how's the craft beer community maintaining in Chicago? Is everybody kind of sticking together? Is it a bit more competitive? What are you experiencing?
I'm seeing a lot of people supporting other people. We've already seen, sort of one or two people close temporarily. Argus Brewing on the southwest side, which has been around even longer than we have, finally packed up shop for good, and that's always really terrible to see. We're all kind of trying to stick together and support each other and hope for the best here soon.
That's great. And obviously let's hope. How are you Cubs fans doing in Chicago? Just heartbroken?
Yeah, I remember at the end of last season when we really kind of slipped on the banana peel, and I thought, all right, I'm sick of watching this team right now. I can wait until next year. My God, I would give anything to watch one game of those awful 90s Cubs teams, the pre-Sosa, cheap Tribune ownership, post-Maddox. I would watch any of those teams lose 11-1 if it meant live sports right now.
I think I've watched Game 7 of the World Series 4 or 5 times with my kids over the last month, so there isn't much on. So I'll just rewatch that over and over again.
Yeah, I still get nervous if we're gonna win.
Can I just? Can I say I grew up probably 50 miles west of Cleveland, so I'd like to put a moratorium on the Cubs World Series talk, please.
Okay. Emma, Tracy, bouncing it back to you here. Obviously, Seedstock is where you spend a lot of time, but I know you're doing a lot with Molly's, obviously, and with Hops and Pies and the donut shop over there, Berkeley Donuts. So, what are you seeing in terms of how those businesses are kind of maintaining? I guess out of curiosity, can we begin with Hops and Pies? Are they selling a lot of pizzas and a lot of donuts still?
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely an anomaly. I mean, that's such a neighborhood institution. They have been lucky enough to not have had to let anybody go, and they've even been able to hire back some team members of theirs who have gone on to other ventures but have since been laid off. They've been able to rehire them. They had this infamous beer club where it's $60 for the year, and it's on certain Sundays you get 50-cent drafts. They open up hours early for the beer club. And one day they made $10,000 in gift card sale or member club sales. So the community's really, really rallied around them. They're actually taking a week off starting Sunday because they're just exhausted. They've been donating meals every day to the hospitals, and they want all of this to be on the down low. They're being very, very humble about it, but they're just very tired.
So John, so you just to kind of chime in real quick, I'm assuming Nate and Jay know this, but Hops and Pies is really kind of one of the craft beer establishments in Denver. What they get on tap is stuff that you can't get anywhere else in the city and the rest of the country. And so, it's definitely a kind of a craft beer hub, and it's been around for several years. And they've just recently opened up a donut shop making potato donuts that are amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
What about Molly's, I guess, Emily, and then if you want to talk about Seedstock, the kind of the actual brewery.
Seedstock is super similar to what Nate was saying that he's experiencing. It's very similar vibe. They rely so much on the neighborhood, and I think their sales are down about 40%. In the same avenue, they still haven't started delivering their old school, and like he said, never say never, but if this went on for really the foreseeable future, they would probably have to pivot. And then as for Molly's, they're kind of in the same boat as Hops and Pie. They're killing it right now, and they're trying to be humble about it. I think they're in this weird ethical place of they're one of the very few industries that's doing extremely well right now. So it's kind of hard for them to project that while also doing service to their brand. So yeah, they were lucky where they had their e-commerce site ready to go right when Corona happened, and they had been working on it for 2 years. So they have 40,000 products. There's no way they would have been able to archive that, out of thin air. So it just was very fortuitous timing. And then it's their accolades are constantly re-upping themselves. One day it'll be oh, we had the best sale, at that store ever. Next day, oh, we just had our best sales ever.
Wow.
And then I know that with Drizzly, I think they're their number one partner or some insane superlative like that. They sell the most products of any of their Drizzly partners.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Wow. What's Seedstock doing, I guess, in terms of getting beer out the door? Is it all crowlers?
All crowlers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
they have a mug club membership, which I know a lot of places do. Some new merch. Really just like local initiatives that are just trying to stay afloat and pay the bills.
All they can do for sure.
Seedstock's in a great neighborhood, very walkable, but maybe not demographically the most affluent or the largest beer drinking neighborhood, unfortunately.
I think when Odell's is supposed to open up one of their locations, like 2 blocks away, and Seedstock is like super jazzed about that because it's really going to make this, like brewery bar called, like they already have like Little Machine and Hogshead, and now it's just like one more like major player to the neighborhood.
That's awesome. It's good to hear. John, before we jump into what y'all are actually doing with your marketing, how have you been handling merchandise sales? Are you seeing an increase in sales? Are people willing to buy stuff because of all of the folks on this podcast? Obviously, Revolution does have that brand that you can put on shirts, and it's beyond Chicago that people see that logo and understand it. So, yeah, what are you seeing in terms of those numbers?
They're going pretty well. One thing that we are kind of dealing with is just trying to get have as few people in the brewery at a time. So Andrew, who works, he's my boss, our director of marketing, goes in himself, once or twice a week and packs up all these orders and sends them out. Another cool thing we've been doing is offering merch and beer together with different combos, and we've found that we've had pretty great response to that, especially this last one where it was barley wine and the barley wine themed t-shirt. Like there's a very certain crowd that really enjoys that.
Awesome. Cool.
John, are you guys the only ones doing that? Because I feel like we've been talking about having a beer and merch combo for a couple of weeks with the local Denver brewers, and I haven't personally seen much of it offered, but it seems like such a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it depends on if you have stuff designed and produced already, because obviously fulfillment for new stuff now is, a huge runaround. So we were lucky enough that we had some cool merch that we were sitting on that just kind of made organic sense. And then with the fake tailgate thing, having, a partner to throw in stuff to create a combo that's like kind of a little bit of both of you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know that Sam pushes our merch on the reg only because we have no other way to get our name out there to our 87 listeners or whatever it is. So we're every opportunity we can get to add a T-shirt or a sticker is pretty huge for us. And Emily, you said you guys have new merch, but Nate, what about you guys? You selling a lot of T-shirts or mugs? Or
I have an idea. We could all be juggling, and then when the juggling stops, we know that that person's frozen before we ask them anything.
That is true. That is very true. Okay, so let's jump into the kind of the $50 million question, whatever the hell we want to call it, whatever that game was, $100,000 question. John Carruthers, what are you doing in order to keep your breweries relevant, your brewery relevant, Revolution relevant, and your customers engaged? Obviously, you're the brains behind all of the stuff that's happening at Revolution. What in your brain as this was beginning to unfold, how did you strategize this, and how have you deployed it? What tactics are you using?
I'm going to take issue with your characterization of me as clever enough to think of any of this.
No, you are.
But I am lucky to work with a lot of really talented people. One of the things that we did at the beginning was just sort of full transparency on, this is before the governor's orders even came down. What are we doing for health and safety? What are we doing for sanitation? What processes are we changing? What new operations and hours are we going to? And to just sort of overfeed information to people, so it's always there to find it. Then from there, you eventually do have to go back to selling beer. That's how we survive, right? But no one wants to be just sort of nakedly sold to all the time, especially not during now. So what we've been trying to do is just source the different storylines of what our team's going through, or what sort of beer we're bringing you and how that can sort of help improve the day-to-day. And, by kind of presenting ourselves as not a monolithic, Revolution brand, but, as, people who live in this neighborhood, people who walk to work at the brewery, and people who are just as worried and concerned about what's happening as everyone else. We try to sell our beer as, members of the community of Chicago, of Logan Square. And, people tend to relate to people better than just really slick marketing, which is good because it's incredibly hard to do anything slick right now, while we're all in different locations. Can I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you did. So are you upping the amount that you're posting on social, or are you trying different platforms? What platforms are working? I just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so we're hitting Facebook, Instagram. We have two Facebooks, one for the brand and one for the brew publication. But we have two Facebooks, Instagram and Twitter. These are all our popular channels. We've been posting, scheduled media and everything. But what I've been doing a lot more of is just kind of talking to people as the brewery. People enjoy sort of being asked like an extra question, and it's like, hey, what am I doing? So they'll tag us in with their loaf of sourdough, and I've been baking just like anyone else, and I'm like, hey, what kind of hydration did you hit on that? And they're like, oh, I hadn't thought to tell you, brewery. Let's have a chat. When we were posting about, hey, this beer is coming out next week and we're super excited, it's true because it's something new to do and it helps us mark the time, and we are genuinely super excited. We just put out a brunch-themed beer with blood orange puree that was in the works, before this happened. And it was cool to make just a bunch of chilaquiles and eggs and take a picture of it. And, hey, I'm working.
Are you seeing a lot of that then in terms of people who are creating content and tagging Revolution? Are they drinking those beers and then they're tagging you? The reason why I ask is because I've got clients of my own who are trying to do that with cocktail recipes. And a lot of people are, making cocktails at home, and there's a lot of success that we're seeing from that. Are you experiencing that as well for Revolution?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot less beer check-ins, whether it's Untapped or any other platform, and I'm seeing a lot more people just creating something or shooting something at us, or other people, will be co-tagged and a lot of stuff. But people have gotten creative with the at-home photography, and we've seen a lot of really great product shots that, frankly, I don't think I could do as someone who works for the brewery who makes that beer. It's pretty cool to see.
That's awesome. Nate, what are you doing in terms of, keeping things relevant? I've seen some of the pictures that you're posting. It seems like you are, one of few that are in the brew house that's able to take those pics and to get some cool angles. And so as this began to roll out, as this began to happen, what were you thinking, and how are you've been able to kind of stay relevant and top of mind for your neighborhood friends?
Well, I think the one kind of strategy discussion we had was that, as this started to unfold, was that people probably don't, or maybe they shouldn't look to their local brewery for, health tips or, pandemic advice, right? If you were going to come to the brewery tap room and have a beer, you've made that decision. You want to quote unquote check out. You want to have a beer. You want to relax. You want to have a good time and talk to the bartender. So for us, it was a little bit about how do we bridge the gap and share that experience. So yeah, you mentioned taking some nice shots, with an actual camera, not on the iPhone. We've got a couple folks here, myself and another maybe half of our staff, is familiar with the camera. So there are some days it's like, oh, hey, come in early, or if you want to come in on your day off, and we'll set up some shots, break some glasses, spill some stuff, get some, interesting shots to capture people's attention since we have a little bit more time and space. Some, Instagram stories, the stuff that's kind of temporary, pop culture stuff, memes, just to kind of keep people laughing, keep them disconnected, or, like I said, when they want to check out, we've done fake Zoom calls, where our beers were Zoom participants instead of people. Different beers, different glasses, crowlers all over, different people's houses. That sort of, on April Fools, I did because of the Tiger King was, really ruling the world outside of coronavirus a month ago, and now everybody forgot about it. But we made up a picture, image of a tiger striped hazy IPA. And then we put it on our online store because people were messaging us on Instagram without a price, and we got a couple people that ordered it, and we're a little bit upset when they showed up and couldn't have a tiger striped hazy IPA. And yeah, there's one guy. I mean, I got some good belly laughs out of a few people, but there's one guy that was a little disappointed, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't be making jokes. During the midst of this, because it just looked like it piled on his day. I was like, hey man, let me throw an extra can on your order for you.
Was it Joe Exotic? Did he get out of prison and come buy a beer?
Yeah, no, he. I don't know if the guy's out yet. But yeah, he was this particular neighbor. I was thinking he just had to look like, oh shit, like now this, like quarantine, and now I can't get this. I was like,
Oh
man.
my god.
So yeah, just keeping it, lighthearted. More entertainment. Just trying to keep the conversation going. About our products and other things for sure.
Do you feel like that's sticking a little bit more, the kind of lighthearted stuff with what you're posting? Because I know in watching kind of what all of you are doing, you are being very lighthearted. Most of you are being very lighthearted. John's a little bit too serious for most, but that's okay. I mean, people have to enjoy a good chuckle, right, Nate? Are you seeing the engagement numbers go up on that kind of stuff?
We have, yeah, and I don't know if it's from any great comedy writing on our part or just the fact that everybody's home all day long, with their various devices. But yeah, we've seen, likes and views go up, and we definitely see more, messages and response come through, and, we try to just stay on top of that and respond, if anything, just to, like I said, keep the conversation going and let people know there's somebody out here, and if you wanna shoot the shit and have your beer, you having your beer at home, I'm here, and I'm somebody's here for you.
Are you running any ads like to get people to the site, to your website, to set up some deliveries and some pickups, or none of that?
No, we don't. Maybe to our own detriment. But even as we started as an organic process, we don't really have an advertising budget.
Okay.
With the proximity of our patrons and free resources like Instagram and Facebook, and if anything, the greatest thing would be for a neighbor to take a crawler home, and a neighbor that didn't know there was a brewery 5 blocks away to be like, oh wait, where'd you get that? Oh man, I should go over there and check that out. That would be that's the biggest win for us.
Perfect. All right, Emily, Tracy, on to you, because obviously you're managing three different types of businesses, and a couple of them are very, very heavy hitters. What are you trying to do to keep these brands out there and customers engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I think now is definitely the time where you can do a little more educational outreach. People have more time right now to read whatever you're putting out there. So like right now, for example, Seedstock, they're putting out a new Pilsner on Friday. So that means they'll have a lineup of a few Pilsners. They're kind of trying to be how, like Cerebral is known for their IPAs. They're trying to be known for like these Eastern European heavy Pilsners. So they're like taking the time to really lay out, like, here are the differences between the Pilsners, where normally I don't think people would take the time to really connect on those subtle differences, but right now they do. In terms of a little bit of ad money, like $50 per month on each account, just because, I mean, that's just the way they work, unfortunately. Like, I don't necessarily agree with it, but just how the algorithm sorts out people.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, news, like such standard things like the e-newsletters every week we're doing a bunch of stuff for the Mug Club for Seedstock, because right now their Mug Club is you get like parties every month and free stuff every month, and that's just not feasible right now. So kind of trying to show them extra love. I don't know exact numbers for them, but I assume that their customer base is 90% regulars. So it's not too hard to get support thrown behind them. And then kind of just by like fortuitous timing, they decided to reroute this year in their business strategy to go from offering some restaurant accounts to really just taking off all off-prem accounts, because they have so many loggers where they just don't have the capacity in the brewery to brew beers for the tap room and for the restaurants. So they've been lucky where they pivoted and now just have a lot of product to move, rather than waiting on a restaurant to reopen and be able to sell their product or probably have to dump it. They never really do bottle releases. They decided to bottle a barrel-aged Doppelbock that they did with Law's Whiskey, which kind of brings me into like whatever you can do, I think, to partner with other breweries or even just brands that you respect around town, like what this is, 3 breweries around town or in Chicago, coming together to, cross promote. I think one thing that worked in Denver's favor to a small amount was that Collab Fest was, right around, like, it was supposed to be 2 weeks ago. So everyone already had all those collaboration beers ready to give out. So it was just extra cross promotional marketing that was built in because everyone had those collab beers on hand.
I want to bounce back real quick to your comment about email marketing. I think as I try to study this a little bit and write about it, but also practice it. I think email is often overlooked. I know what you do with Molly's in terms of your newsletter, and I get it very often. Are you seeing much ROI, a high ROI with the newsletters in this moment, or have you paid attention to that at all?
Yeah, so they do have a separate marketing manager that works on the email newsletters, but for a separate company, I was doing their emails throughout the coronavirus, and numbers were insane. Like, if you have an emailing list, definitely utilize it. Like, numbers would go from 13% average open rate to 40%. Wow. I mean, yeah. And I mean, of course, don't be tone deaf. People really got away from themselves at the beginning of this. So, reel it in and kind of give helpful content.
John, you were smiling and nodding. What are you doing with Rev in terms of email? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm only super right in that some people did sort of lose themselves at the beginning, and then after that they kind of course corrected, and every email started with "in these trying times." But we've been doing things like these Zoom happy hours that Nate was talking about. We've been doing those, events like that every couple of weeks. And in terms of getting signups up, people, email is not cool and sexy, but it is absolutely effective, and it is definitely overlooked. And if you start talking, I don't do this, but if you start talking about the dark arts of e-advertising and you have a robust email client list, there is a lot more targeted advertising you can do across platforms with that kind of opt-in.
Yeah, that's something that I think we often overlook. Sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off. We were able to, through SIPFest, the Shelter in Place Beer Fest we did a few weeks ago, to basically create a solid email list that Jay and I never could have, just from people listening to the podcast. And we've seen our numbers triple in 2 weeks because we're not trying to be annoying, right? But we send that weekly email to people and say, hey, just so you know, this week's episode's out, but also, here's, we're doing this roundtable with people to kind of get some insight into what's going on. And so you're right. We're at home. We're looking for something exciting, maybe on our desktop to open or on our phone to open. And John Carruthers in Revolution sent me an email that's maybe it's a funny joke or something like that. I'm absolutely going to click on it for sure.
Yeah, and sorry, can I touch on one more thing? Emily brought up these local partnerships. I think those are fantastic, and there's actually a brewer I wanted to give a shout out to here locally, Clint, who owns Lake Effect Brewing, tiny brewery, sort of by Omega Yeast and by the underneath costume shop. And what he's been doing now with delivery is like a duck to water. He's always wanted to just deliver his own beer directly to people. That's not at all our model, but works great for him. And what he's been doing to build his combos is, in the case of a lack of partnership, he will just go to a bakery and buy 8 dozen donuts and say, okay, I got 8 dozen donut combos now. Or go buy, chocolate or a bread kit or a mask from the costume shop. And he's just got whatever wacky combos every new day of the week. And he's just out paying retail and giving money to these businesses to try to value add, what his brewery can do. I think it's really cool and neighborhood minded.
That's awesome. That's really, partnerships. That's an excellent point is trying to find those folks that are those small businesses that are in the same position as the rest of us and partnering up with them. That's perfect. Awesome. Did we hit all of the secrets that you're doing? Did we get everybody kind of covered? Because we've got some questions from viewers now. Are we ready for those? Yeah. Okay. All right. So this comes from Andrew Osterman. And I would assume this is for Emily and Nate, but I guess, John, if you're paying attention too, feel free to chime in. Out in Denver, what are some cool promotions that you've seen from breweries? Anything similar to a fake tailgate from Rev that John's talking about? Have you seen any cool promotions?
I know what sticks out to me is Grandma's House. If you guys have been there down South Broadway, they're doing a pay what you can program right now. I think that's the first promotional one that comes to mind. I love the women's soccer one though so much. want to steal that.
No, you should steal it. Is that okay, John?
do.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
No, somebody should have done that for opening day for the Rockies. Nobody really thought
Yeah.
about it. That would have been a good.
Yeah.
Jeez, we need John Carruthers out here.
Yeah,
Maybe
you
not
guys
like
are.
Rockies money, maybe like women's soccer, unfortunately, money, but
Yeah,
not Rockies
yeah,
money.
okay, that's true.
But-
That's true. Nate, what about you? Are you seeing anything crazy that it's really kind of made you smile and been effective?
Not on the beer side that just jumps to my mind, but something that I appreciate when I log on to our Instagram with some of our food truck partners is the amount of food being donated to nurses and healthcare workers. So I mean, it's something that makes me smile. That 100%. If we could dole beer out, drop off beer, just at a doorway of a hospital. I'm sure there's probably a couple of regulations against it, but I mean, that's any way to support, the healthcare workers and the nurses and the doctors and so forth that are, putting in the extra time,
Yeah. I would say that these kind of virtual beer fests, not necessarily the one that Jay and I put on, but we did make 10 grand flexing muscles.
That's
Right?
awesome.
Two guys. And everybody who's listening, the shirts are coming. I've got my kids packing shirts into their little fingers start bleeding. So I got to be careful.
They're so good at folding because they're so tiny.
Really are, yes.
Are they
Yes.
not wearing gloves? They should be wearing gloves, man.
Nate, I mean, you've got it. Well, how old's your kid? You're not even there yet. Okay. You're not even there yet. Okay.
Right,
You've got one,
yeah.
Nate. You've got one. Okay, you're just trying to survive. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you shit.
2.5, and he's not folding laundry yet. He's throwing it all off the bed.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what Denver Beer Co. is doing is really great. I think it's on Friday nights. They have a virtual happy hour, and they've been able to pull in some Rockies guys and some city leaders and everything, and people just kind of chime in and join in on the Zoom and have a beer. I don't know if y'all caught I think it was the article from, I want to say it was Forbes or maybe the Wall Street Journal about the uptake in beer consumption over the last 8 weeks and liquor consumption. And we're all drinking a lot more than we should be. We're all doing these happy hours because we don't have to drive anywhere. It's like, it's 3 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to crack open a beer and drink till 11 and it'll be fine.
3 o'clock, you're getting a late start, man.
Okay. Yes, exactly. I'm going to get in trouble for this, but my wife she can't hear me upstairs. Yesterday I went up to get lunch because I've been working in the basement. And she was getting ready to take our two oldest on a walk. And she was like, I need a koozie. I said, for what? Well, I need to take this hard kombucha with me. She put it like at noon. She was walking around the neighborhood. So we're all going a little bit crazy for sure. But
I've definitely seen the undisguised road soda. It's a real, like, every street is Bourbon Street now.
It's so true. Oh my God, for sure. Another question coming in. Let's see. There was somebody that mentioned homebrewing. So that's something that we've talked about on the show a little bit. As much as, the bread making craze is going fucking nuts. And I've tried to make it. I can't make bread. Sorry, John and Nate, if you guys are making bread, but I bought a beer kit from the Brooklyn Brewhouse, Brooklyn Brew Shop, and so they make gallon kits, and so that was kind of fun to do at home. So if anybody out there needs a brew kit and wants to make beer and beer and bread, it totally works. But all right, next question. Sorry. Let's see. Are you all distributing outside of your usual footprint with bars closed? We've been lucky here in Boston to get some Vermont beer that's usually hard to come by. So out of curiosity, and Emily, why don't you start? Are you seeing kind of the Seedstock brand reach a little bit further than what you're used to because of pickups or not?
Yeah, I mean, they don't distribute at all, but we've been running some social media content. Content's a big word, just build community. Show us your seed stock at home. So we've been seeing it, I think safely in the mountains, along people's houses. I'm just drooling over. But yeah, not too much of a difference in the footprint.
What about you, Nate?
I think, fortunately enough, we have, our neighborhood has been very supportive of us, which is, by and large, 90 to 100% of our patrons. So nothing going too far out there that I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, y'all two run different kinds of business models. Out of curiosity, I guess, back to Emily real quick, with Molly's and the Drizzly partnership, how far does the Drizzly kind of circle serve when it comes to Molly's?
That's a really good question. I think 10 miles. It serves Denver well because one's in like the northwest suburbs and one's in Greenwood Village in the south. But I think 10 miles. But there's like so many other competitors too, like Argonaut, Applejack, Bonnie Brae, that may have different radiuses.
You got cooler stores though that are fun to go in, but
thank you.
Of course. John, so I guess, what are you seeing people packaging up your beer and shipping it off to the East and the West Coast now? Or I mean, what have you seen from the social media kind of content?
Well, Sam, as you well know, you can't legally send beer through the mail.
I've heard.
However, keeping an eye on our orders, especially of our vintage and barrel age stuff, people are either sending their friends gift packages on their own once we sell them beer, or there is a small cadre of barley wine fans with just tremendous disposable income and incredible consumption rate here. I will say,
yeah, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, sorry. Just in terms of talking about, like, it's not new distribution, but here in Illinois, at least, the way that not just us, but every brewery has been building out this online sales system, this delivery system, contactless pickups, however it is, selling the beer online, having that transaction take place electronically. It is just a bunch of breweries here inventing a whole new system of commerce kind of on the fly. And it's been pretty crazy to see. Like, one unintended consequence, like our merch store is built to sell t-shirts and bottle openers and tackers and stuff and then ship it off wherever. So we couldn't turn off the whole shipping address thing. And there is the occasional confusion of like, when's my beer getting here? And we have to go refund the order because we're not mailing a bunch of beer to Kansas. And it happens kind of a lot. But, otherwise, I'm going to be super interested in seeing what happens to these sort of ad hoc new retail systems, once things are relatively back to normal in however many months that is. I mean, it's going to be, if I can dip into cliche, it's going to be a real weird genie to try to stuff back in the bottle, once the traditional methods of distribution and operation are back running.
No, I mean, I think you're 100% right. I mean, Nate and Emily can also speak to this if y'all want to, but for small craft breweries, a lot of them are able to stay afloat because of the distribution, the new distribution, the to-go orders, the delivery, and all of that. And so how are we in 6, 12, 18 months from now going to say, no, you can't do that anymore, and not expect the Colorado Brewers Guild or the Iowa Brewers Guild or the Illinois Brewers Guild to not be up in arms and pissed off about this? So, I mean, what do you guys think? Nate and Emily, I guess, what are you hearing from folks?
I know some of my clients have been writing letters to the governor saying, like, you need to extend this, especially if stuff's just opening up at 50% capacity. It might as well be 0% opened. So I think it's kind of people bonding together and writing to your legislators.
Nate, what about you? I mean, what are you talking with the other two guys? What are they thinking?
Aside from beer, if I can't walk into a Tex-Mex restaurant and get a margarita to go, after all this is over with, I'm going to be just so upset.
It's true. It's true.
The one positive in all this is that, like, you can finally just walk into a place and they just hand you the straw and they say, don't put the straw in until you walk outside. No, but absolutely to echo Emily's point, if, our tap room fire code is somewhere about 90, I would expect, and this is just an educated guess, I would expect when we open, they have that or third that, right?
Yeah. What's Texas doing? 25%?
That's news to me, but that makes perfect sense if you look at spacing people out. So fortunately, a brewery has the luxury of being able to growler or crawler off at the point and then send somebody on their way. So I think there's many industries that 50% is 0%, right? So there's going to have to be this long gray area, for when we get to normal or normal operation.
One more question, then I'll let everybody kind of plug their pluggables. How have gift card sales helped that's probably for Nate and for Emily, but also John, are you seeing, we'll start with Emily and then kind of move around. Are you seeing many gift card sales happening? Have you talked to your clients, Emily?
Yeah, good question. Hops and Pie's been running a deal like so many others where, buy $100, get $20 for free, tacked on. So that's made a huge difference for them. And I think just, loved ones have been supporting Seedstock. Who knows if they'll even be able to use it ever, but just being able to show your support from across the globe for the brands you care about has been really helpful.
That's awesome. Nate, what about you? Are you selling gift cards out of there?
We have had a slight increase in gift cards. Nothing quite out of the ordinary. We did early on have a request for the ability to just send gratuity to our staff without actually buying beer, on the online store. So we added what we call it on the store was like staff love button, and it just goes right into the tip queue. We divided it up for our crew, and we've had a few handful, or more notable contributions, especially around our anniversary party this last weekend. So if anybody's listening, I'll just take this moment to say thank you for that. And we kind of spread it around to everybody, on the service crew. So I appreciate it. It's very humbling. I know they all love it. And so that we've seen that you don't normally get in other circumstances.
Okay. Before we let you plug those pluggables, though, I got one more thing. Each one of you want to hear what is one thing that every craft brewery or small business could be doing right now to better promote their brand and to keep that engagement alive. What's something that comes to mind, John Carruthers? What is something that's overlooked or that's something that works for you? What would you suggest?
I think it's just being sort of open and receptive to the messages people want to hear. I had great success finding one of the old color-changing Dennis Rodman hair cups and taking a picture of that next to, an anti-hero can, because Sundays are the day of the Bulls, in Chicago for as long as the ESPN documentary goes. I think some people are too afraid to say anything to feel like they're making light, but people are looking for stuff to engage with that's not any relation to what's going on publicly. Like, you can still be organic, you can still be honest, you can still have a personality as long as you are empathetic and receptive to what your community is looking for. So don't be afraid to say stuff.
I was wondering how long we would go before the last dance was referenced. I just realized that's another stab in Nate's chest because of the Craig Elo jumper. Yes. Oh my God. No, it's so good. It has kept some sanity in the J House definitely over the last couple of weeks. Yes,
I had bought a pair of Bulls sweatpants before the first episode was even over. And Nate, I am sorry you were born under a cursed moon. My heart bleeds for you.
That's great. Emily, Tracy, one thing that you would suggest that these people that if they're not doing now, they start doing tomorrow.
I think what people need to do, especially now that they announced PPP loans, our applications are back up. I think businesses need to start talking to each other about who's getting it and who's not. I think people who are getting it are kind of not ashamed per se, but feel very gracious and lucky to have it and don't want to put it out there. And then other people aren't getting it and they don't know why they're not getting it. And so I feel like if somehow there could be a network of small businesses who are getting the, PPP loans and ones who aren't, if somehow they could just talk to each other and figure out what is different between their applications, what's different with their banks. So, people can get paid and that can be protected.
I dig that. I like that kind of open communication between small businesses. That makes total sense. Nate Smith, ending up with you, buddy. What's something that you would suggest a small business, whether that be in terms of marketing, communication, PR, what have you, should be doing right now or tomorrow when they hear this? What would you suggest?
To be completely genuine with yourself and with your audience. If you're, like Emily said earlier, if you're into education and the intellectual side, spread that knowledge around. If you want to make tiger striped memes, do that. if you want to go on a live stream and get beat up by the Iowa and Illinois guy, wait for college football season, and it'll all come around. So.
Well, it's not coming until 2021, so you're fine.
Sure, but in due course, right?
But I'm pretty sure Ohio State's worst loss was in Iowa City about 3 years ago, right? 4 years ago? 3 years ago. Yeah,
every Big Ten team's worst loss in Iowa City at night within the last 5 years.
Yes, yeah, it probably is. You're right.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. But no, just be who you are,
Okay.
Make people laugh, give them something to cool look at, teach them something,
like
keep the conversation going.
Emily, Tracy, plug your pluggables, please. Where can we follow and find and order beer from everybody? Where do we go?
Yeah, Seedstock Brewery. If you guys like old world beers you probably can't pronounce, like Broyhan, Pull Up Maybe. They're on West Colfax, old auto mechanic shop, really cute shop. Hops and Pie in the Tennyson neighborhood at Denver, and Molly Spirits has 2 locations up north, one down south, and I'm EL Tracy on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you. Nate Dogg, what about you? Where can we order some beer from Roundtable? And what's the website? What are the socials?
Yeah, find us on Facebook and Instagram, Roundtable Brewhouse. The website is lngtbl.com. Right here in the heart of Park Hill.
Awesome. And John Carruthers, what do we need to know about Rev Brew? Where can we get the beer? Where do we need to order? Where can we buy merch? Everything.
Buy merch or curbside if you're local at revbrew.com. Our socials are RevBrew Chicago. Please don't tag that small brewery out of Paonia, Colorado. I think they really hate it. But yeah, otherwise, I'm just going to plug local, whether it's us or anyone. Everyone should care a little more about ownership during this time and who's selling them the beer and like where that money's going to in their community. This is a great time to make sure that the places you love are still there for you after all this.
Absolutely. We talk about beer on this podcast. We talk about how beer is made. Let's not forget the people who make it possible. There are a lot of yeast makers out there. There are a lot of grain makers out there, and grinders and preparers and everything. And so think about these small businesses. Extremely important. You three, thank you so much for joining us. Jay had a real job meeting apparently. And he's obviously half in the bag for us, so that's great. But everybody, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and evening. Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.